In a quiet Connecticut suburb, where luxury blended seamlessly with privacy, Richard Coleman had built more than just wealth. He had built a reputation for integrity. At 62, the self-made millionaire was known in corporate circles as sharp, disciplined, and impossible to deceive. After the death of his wife, his world had narrowed to his business and his only son, Daniel. When Daniel married Emily, Richard accepted her politely, but something deep inside him never fully settled. Emily was impressive on the surface. She dressed elegantly, spoke confidently at social gatherings, and shared inspirational quotes about kindness and gratitude online. Friends admired her charm, and business associates praised her sophistication. Yet Richard noticed what others ignored. He observed how her smile faded when waiters approached, how she avoided eye contact with cleaners at family events, and how her politeness seemed carefully reserved for people who mattered to her ambitions. When Daniel left for a month-long business trip overseas, Richard found himself alone with his doubts. He didn't want rumors, arguments, or assumptions. He wanted certainty. Character, he believed, was revealed not through words, but through behavior, especially when no advantage was at stake. Using his influence discreetly, Richard arranged something unusual. Through a sanitation company partially funded by his foundation, he obtained access to a local garbage collection route. He transformed himself completely, dyed hair, loose clothes, a headscarf, gloves, and the uniform of an older female worker. To avoid recognition, he adopted the name Rosa Miller, posing as an immigrant woman earning a living through exhausting, unseen labor. Early one cold morning, Rosa pushed a garbage cart toward a familiar driveway, the upscale home of Daniel and Emily. Emily stepped outside, irritation already visible as she checked her phone. "You're late," she said sharply, barely glancing up. Rosa apologized softly, her voice gentle and accented. Emily wrinkled her nose, clearly uncomfortable. "Just take the trash and don't touch anything else," she snapped. This driveway was cleaned yesterday. As Rosa lifted the bags, one split open, spilling waste onto the pavement. Emily's expression hardened with disgust. She stepped back as if contamination might reach her. "Unbelievable," she muttered. "Clean it properly. People like you should be more careful." Rosa quietly gathered the spilled trash with bare, shaking hands. Emily had already turned away, filming a short video about starting the week with gratitude. Not once did she offer help or even basic courtesy. When the work was finished, Rosa nodded politely and walked on. Behind the disguise, Richard felt a heavy weight settle in his chest. This was not impatience or stress. It was indifference, cold, effortless, and practiced. That evening, Richard returned home, removed the disguise, and sat alone in silence. What he had witnessed wasn't a single. A few days later, Richard returned to the same neighborhood wearing the same disguise, the weight of his previous encounter still pressing on his mind. This time the morning air was sharper, the sidewalks glazed with thin ice. As Rosa Miller, he moved slowly, deliberately, wanting to see whether Emily's behavior had been an exception or a habit shaped by comfort and privilege. When he reached Daniel and Emily's house, Emily was already outside, standing beside her car with clear frustration. The engine refused to start, and her irritation grew with every failed attempt. Rosa paused nearby, then gently offered help, suggesting they push the car slightly to clear the driveway until assistance arrived. Emily looked at her, annoyance flashing in her eyes. She glanced around the street, noticing no neighbors watching. No cameras pointed her way. "I don't need help," Emily replied coldly. "Just do your job and move along." Rosa nodded and continued her work. Moments later, a sharp cry broke the quiet. Across the street, an elderly woman slipped on the icy sidewalk and fell hard. Without hesitation, Rosa dropped her tools and rushed to the woman's side, carefully helping her sit up and shielding her from the cold. She called emergency services and stayed with her, speaking softly to calm her fear. Emily watched from a distance, arms crossed. Instead of concern, impatience showed on her face. She checked her watch repeatedly, clearly irritated that the garbage collection and her morning had been delayed. When the ambulance arrived, the elderly woman squeezed Rosa's hand with gratitude, whispering thanks through trembling lips. Emily turned away before anyone could notice her expression. That afternoon, Richard arranged a family dinner at his home. Emily arrived confident as ever, her earlier frustration hidden behind a practiced smile. As they sat together, Richard studied her quietly, seeing her now with unmistakable clarity. At last he spoke. "Emily," he asked calmly, "how do you treat people who can do nothing for you?" She laughed lightly, assuming it was a casual question. "I try to treat everyone well," she replied. Richard nodded, then let the silence stretch before continuing. "Then you won't be surprised to know that the garbage collector you dismissed this week was me." The color drained from Emily's face. Her breath caught as realization struck. Before she could speak, Daniel stepped into the room. He had returned early and heard enough to understand. The truth settled heavily between them. "I wasn't testing your manners," Richard said quietly. "I was testing your humanity. Wealth and status change how people act, but they reveal who they truly are." No one spoke. In that stillness, Emily understood that her carefully built image had cracked, and that some judgments once made could not be undone.